Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burning, cauldron bubble, fillet of a fenny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. I have newt and toe of frog. Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
All right, Miss Doubtfire. Hello.
And tongue of dog.
Now you're just laughing.
Adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and howler's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble.
I did not realize that was that long.
You thought it was just double toil and trouble.
Yeah. Cauldron burst and
fire burning cauldron bubble.
And bubble.
Well, you're welcome. Hire me
Bubble,
for your next
baby.
rendition of Macbeth.
Bubble baby bubble boo. Guys, welcome to the Real Awkward Podcast, the best damn podcast you heard today. My name is Andy.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ashley.
Why are you like? You sound.
Miss McGonagall.
Yeah, I was gonna say you definitely sound more like Harry Potter.
Sorry, I'm Ashley.
Yes.
I'm Ashley. So, and if you guys clicked on the thumbnailsies, you already know we talking about wishes. Not wishes.
Wishes?
Not wishes.
Like from a genie?
Yes. I'm a genie in a bottle, baby.
Wow, Christina's here.
All right.
Yeah. Witches. WITCHES.
Witches.
Witches.
Did you have to think about that one?
Yeah, I was like,
I can
wait,
tell.
is there an E? Or is it wishes? Wishes.
He thought it was like sandwich.
Sandwiches.
Yeah.
Amanda, you have done us the honors this episode in the spooky season. I
Yes.
just had a brain fart. I was trying to
Right,
think.
Joe Biden.
I'm the guy with the thing and the stuff.
By the way,
So Amanda, you have prepared an episode for us about what?
this is painful.
Wow.
Is this episode about torture?
Yes, apparently.
Are we talking pointy hats here, or are we talking like real witches?
Well, so here's the deal, man. So like I'm going to talk about the Salem Witch Trials. And you know, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about the Salem Witch Trials. Like they think it's all like, yeah, pointy black hats and black cats and broomsticks and being burned at the stake, and none of that happened here. Like
What? How does that not happen? Where does that come from?
It wasn't great, but you know, nobody was burned at the stake. That wasn't a thing that they did here. So
you say here. What does that mean?
right here. No, I'm just playing.
You mean like here in the continental United States?
In the story.
In Salem, Massachusetts?
Yeah, I think the practice of burning people thought to be witches definitely came from like Europe. There had been other like witch trial, like witch, you know, accusations in other times, but like as far as like American history goes, like this is the one that we had. There was a vampire panic in the East Coast back in like I think the early 1800s as well, that I'd love to go over one day because that was bananas.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
We're just hungry.
For blood.
But yeah, so no, so basically Salem Witch Trials, I'm referring to Salem, Massachusetts. You can still go there today. I've been there. It's amazing. It definitely has like I think the East Coast in general has like this feel that's very different from the West Coast.
Sure.
Salem, there are definitely like some newer buildings and stuff, but they've done a really good job of keeping the old buildings.
Sure.
When I'm done telling the story, remind me, I'll kind of circle back around and talk about like my experience there, because there are some monuments and stuff that they kind of reference some of the stuff that's happened.
Okay. Okay.
But so we're talking about Salem, Massachusetts. If anybody doesn't exactly know kind of the idea, the Salem Witch Trials were a series of hearings and like prosecution of people who were accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts. And this whole like Salem Witch Trials thing took place between February 1692 and May 1693.
Okay, so this is like early colonial like settling.
Very, very early.
Got it.
So at this time, Massachusetts especially, but like this area, Salem, and like it's like Salem, but it was also like Salem and the surrounding areas.
Okay.
They were mostly populated by Puritans.
Okay. Sure.
And Puritans, they have it's like a a religion system of beliefs, right? They believed that they have a handful of beliefs, but essentially like God chose who would be saved and who would be damned, and nobody knew, right?
Right.
But their whole main thing was essentially humans are born sinful,
right.
due to the sins of Adam and Eve, and you essentially need to spend your life having like doing works of God to be able to get into what they believe to be heaven.
Got it. Okay.
So essentially they believed like pretty black and white, God rewarded good and punished evil. And it was very community focused, where they were all doing like the acts of God, and anyone who didn't believe that, or anyone who was kind of on the fringe society, was very much ostracized and seen as like the town crazy lady.
Well, it makes sense too, because these are like, this isn't a population of 1,000. This is like, a couple
smaller
hundred people,
groups.
probably. I'm assuming, yeah.
So they had very strict moral behavior, and they had expectations of the people who lived in their townships.
Okay.
They encouraged literacy for men and women, which was very uncommon for women to be encouraged to be literate.
Yeah, interesting.
They outlawed any type of theater or any kind of like gambling, games of chance, that kind of thing. They in any sex outside of marriage was like one of the like awful.
Right. So basically like anything that would be deemed sinful.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also like, and because it was all based on like a moralism code, like if you were seen as cursing too much, drinking too much, being too lazy, gossiping, you were like considered, you were ostracized
For which reason?
I get it.
Yes.
Got it. Good. I'm a wizard. I'm a wizard, Harry. Yes.
So there is one other thing here I want to talk about.
Ash, what do you, when you think of the Salem Witch Trials, what do you think of?
A lot of just like pointing fingers.
Yeah, like,
And
that's
then-
a witch.
And then being like, no, I'm not. How do I prove it to you?
You're a witch. And then they just like
Yeah.
burned you, right?
Yeah.
Which
I
now-
saw her.
Yeah.
I saw her behind the shed.
She was doing witch things.
Yeah, honestly, that's essentially what it was,
Yeah.
man. Like these people were so like caught up in this idea. And towards the end, I will talk about like some theories that people have had as to why this got so crazy. But it kind of was a lot of just pointing fingers. So the last thing I'll talk about, just to explain kind of Puritans, and I think which is kind of how this all got so crazy. Puritans had like a hierarchy of crimes. Like obviously there's more to this list, but like the top six, like I'm going to go the 6 to 1 being the thing that they have is like the worst thing you could do. Okay.
Okay.
Top 6 worst things.
So bestiality.
That's the worst?
No.
That's the 6th worst.
Oh, okay.
Poisoning. Murder. Third worst thing you can do is blasphemy.
Okay.
Second worst thing you can do is witchcraft.
Oh.
And the first worst thing you can do is idolatry, which is like where you put a different, essentially, deity above God.
Oh, right. Yeah, thou shalt not worship false idols.
Yeah, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. So, so in this just over like this year and a couple months time, over 200 people were accused of being a witch. 30 people were found guilty. 19 of those people were executed, and yes. So sorry, I have all these notes that are kind of crazy. So 14 women and 5 men were executed for being witches. It's also said that an additional 13 people died due to the conditions of the jail.
Oh yeah, like holding them in. Is this where like the a lot of the holding devices, such as like not stirrups. What's the
thinking like an
stocks.
Iron Maiden
stocks and yeah, like an Iron Maiden mask and stuff like that. Were that? I know that was more maybe medieval.
I think a lot of that stuff has been around a lot longer than that.
Sure. When I think of like them putting someone on trial, it's like where the witch is stuck in the stocks and they're just throwing tomatoes at her face.
Honestly, a lot of these were actual trials.
See, this is what gets me, okay? Like, I just
and not like
imagine,
to kill a mockingbird trial.
A gentleman that looks like Quaker Oats comes up,
yes,
and the witch is on trial, and he goes, "Where were you on the fortnight of the darkest moon?" And
I
she's
think
like,
it's essentially
I was just
like
washing the kettle, and he's like, "Lies." And then
Yeah.
the peer of juries the jury of their peers, or whatever, is like, "Fucking witch!" And they're just like screaming at her.
Make a movie, Andy.
Yes, and then all of a sudden the credits roll. And it's like dun dun. Special witches unit.
So, all the women who were accused of witchcraft were between the ages of 19 and 20.
Oh, okay, so it was always young and
Yes.
dumb.
And most of the people who were the accusers were men.
Oh yeah, probably because they wouldn't sleep with them,
Or they did.
or they did, and they were like,
Or they were just women who pushed back and they were considered witches because they wouldn't fall in line with everyone else.
Yeah.
"Well, that's just it. It's a really good way to get rid of someone you don't like."
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So none of the people who were executed for being witches ever admitted to being witches.
Wait, Amanda, can we clarify, what do they think a witch is? Just someone that does those 6 things? Makes you a
So
witch?
No. That is
okay,
like
okay.
Witches was
What-
on the list.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry. You're right. It was.
I will talk a little bit about some of the things that they believe the witches did, but it's
Okay,
essentially any negative thing that could happen to you as a human could be that someone has cursed you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So like
Magical powers to make your life
literally, so it's like your crops won't grow, you're cursed. Like you're like there were report people speaking in tongues, they're cursed. Or and it's not so much that it's the witches who are cursed. It's
Right.
someone in the town believing that a witch put a hex on them.
I see. Okay.
And so now,
Witch,
like,
witch
I-
and her little Debbie snacks. Yeah.
Yeah, like I like let's say like
What?
I don't get it either. I've been sick and this one woman refused to give me food. She's a witch. She did this to me.
Yeah. So anytime, literally, if they were opposed to someone,
She looked at me funny.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, so this all kind of started. This whole thing kind of began. 1692.
Nice. The Beatles and the witches.
The daughter and niece, so 2 girls, of Reverend Samuel Parris. He was Salem's first ordained minister. These girls started to exhibit strange behavior. And the behavior was like making odd sounds, speaking in tongues, screaming. They would like contort their bodies all over the place, and they would throw objects.
Oh.
Shortly after this began, other girls in Salem began acting similarly to these two girls named Elizabeth and Abigail. According to the local doctor, the behavior was attributed to supernatural causes.
Got it.
But
Or maybe you're just an idiot, Doc.
Well, it should be noted
Witch.
there was only there was only one doctor, and he could only read and not write.
Okay, that's a problem.
So,
I think she's a witch there.
So by February of 1692, I wrote down 1962. Jesus
I
Christ.
love it.
Jonathan, I'm going to mess it up. So if I say 1962, I'm not going to keep, I'm not going to
just
fix
say
it.
62 and people will have to fill in the blanks.
It's 92. By February of that year, Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne, they were the local magistrates, and a magistrate is like a judge.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So the local judges pressured these girls who have been afflicted to name the people who caused their behavior. So this is how it all kind of started to snowball.
So they were forced to pick a scapegoat, basically.
Essentially. It's like, who did this to you?
Right.
There were 3 women who were accused. 2 of the women, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, never admitted to anything, said they were innocent, and they died due to the poor conditions of the jail.
Okay, got it.
The 3rd woman, her name was Tituba, and she was the reverend, so the guy whose like daughter and niece were the first 2. Mm-hmm. She was their slave.
Okay.
And Tituba was known to have played fortune-telling games, and they were strictly forbidden by the Puritans.
Got it.
And I guess she was kind of like the town, not like, I don't want to say witch doctor, but like she was like the town kind of kooky, creepy lady.
Got it.
Okay.
I mean, her name's Tituba.
Miss Cleve.
Well, and she, people obviously did not look kindly on anyone who wasn't white. So I think that especially back then, it was, I think she was the easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
Right. The target's there.
Apparently the other 2 women, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, were kind of on the fringes of the society as well, because they did not fully exemplify the Puritan lifestyle.
Okay.
So while Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne professed their innocence, Tituba openly admitted to being a witch.
Ooh.
And she admitted to cursing the girls.
Dang.
And I guess she's quoted as saying, "The devil came to me and bid me serve him."
Dude, that's like a power play.
Yeah, it's like these 2 white ladies like, I didn't do it. And it's this other lady, she's like, yeah, I fucking did it.
It's like,
what are you gonna do about it, bitch? So some people believe that she was forced to confess and fabricated her story. But there's obviously no way to tell it so long ago and all that stuff. But during her trial, she admitted that there were other witches working in Salem as a coven to harm the Puritans.
Oh, look at that. They're like building this creepy story in this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
So
I'm already freaked out.
She apparently was just basically just being like, yeah, this happens. Yeah, I talked to the devil. Yeah, I do this. And she claimed that she would go blind during her trial. And that was how the devil would punish her for telling the Puritans like what was going on.
Oh, okay.
After she was in jail for 1 year and 3 months. She was indicted, so charged with being a witch, and then released.
Really? No other punishment?
So I'm sure she was punished.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the jail
but she wasn't
nice,
executed.
yeah.
Okay. Tituba's trial really kind of changed some things in Salem. So the 2 what was the word? Magistrates, Jesus Christ. the magistrates realized they decided that there was something bigger going on. So William Phips, the governor of Massachusetts at the time, he established the Court of Oyer and Terminer. So that it was a special like court session that would determine if a woman was practicing witchcraft or if
Witch
someone was
trials.
practicing witchcraft. So it quite literally was the creation
court.
of yes, night.
Yeah.
It's like night court, like for witches.
That's crazy, dude.
So, in the first trial of the court, a woman named Bridget Bishop was found guilty of being a witch, and she was the first woman executed during the Salem Witch Trials. She was hanged, and in between the months of July and September, 18 more people were found guilty and executed. This included 4 men.
Okay.
One of the men accused of witchcraft was named George Burroughs. His trial was interesting because he had a lot of people claiming in court that he was like a demon or devil or, a witch. These multiple people accused him of biting them.
Ooh.
And multiple people claimed that when he was in the courtroom, they saw spirits in the courtroom. There was one man who is probably like, when you're kind of digging up information on this stuff, there's one man's name who kind of sticks out the most. And if you go to Salem, this guy kind of has his own kind of monument sort of thingy. A man named Giles Corey was accused of being a witch along with his wife, Martha Corey. They were both arrested, and Giles Corey refused to even enter guilty or not guilty. He basically was like, I'm not doing this.
I don't want to play anymore.
If only you could just do that now.
Right.
Right? He basically was just like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this.
This is ridiculous.
So it's a French word. It's like a French phrase. I don't know it.
Parlay.
But that's a pirate word.
It's a pirate word.
So he was subjected to torture by crushing as a way to get him to submit a plea.
Ooh.
So for 3 continuous days, he was like laying on the ground and was having large rocks placed upon him.
Dang.
So after 3 days of this, of just them piling huge rocks on him, he eventually died from being crushed to death.
I imagine so. That's insane.
And I guess one of his final words was like, more rocks.
Oh,
And you're
man,
like, damn, that guy's a badass.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what a beast, dude.
So I will talk on this briefly. So if you go to Salem, there are a lot of historical things, but there is there's a big like graveyard in kind of the middle of Salem, and they have all these like colonial headstones and stuff, and they're kind of gorgeous in a certain way.
Sure.
But there's this kind of rock courtyardy thing, like this big area, and there are like these benches almost that stick out of the sides of the rocks, and they have each of the woman's names and men's names who was executed.
Oh, dang. Okay.
And then, and I believe, I don't know for sure, but I believe this was where Giles Corey was murdered.
So Amanda, is this like a tourist attraction thing, or is this literally like monument because they knew they did wrong? Like
kind of
throughout
both.
the years?
Kind of both.
Okay.
So in Boston, there's this really cool thing called the Freedom Trail. And in like the sidewalk, as you walk through like downtown Boston, there's like a line that's like built into the walkway, and you can follow it throughout Boston, and it takes you past all these historical things. Oldner Church, Bunker Hill, like Benjamin Franklin's tomb. Like there's all these really amazing historical sites that you see just following this trail.
Sure.
So Salem has they have their own kind of trail that you can follow that takes you through the small town of Salem. Salem's not a humongous town.
Sure.
So there's like, it's kind of half and half. So there is a witchcraft museum that has some that has a lot of old-timey things from then, but it really talks about what these people had to go through. And there are a lot of like drawings and stuff, but then like there's like this big kind of town square thing, and then kind of off to the side is this cemetery, but it is still kind of the middle of town.
Okay. Sure.
And it's like the town was built almost around this main town area. There's like a church and a like graveyard and stuff, and then like out from it is everything else.
Okay,
and
so like the center of the city is where a lot of this went down.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
okay.
imagine like in your mind, you're looking at like a really old-timey church with like a smallish old-timey cemetery, and there's like this created, but it's been you can tell it's not as old as everything else.
Sure.
It's like almost like slate rock. It's like flat rocks, but not cement.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like this big built out area, and it's kind of like a monument, kind of like a honoring the victims.
Sure.
But it's not like, you know, these huge pillars or anything.
Right.
Okay. So basically it's like this thing, and there's like these pieces that come out of the sides of the slate, and it has like, it's essentially like headstones in a way for the people who were executed. And then in the middle is information about Giles Corey. And so he like basically being like, he's the one who's kind of like remembered the most because he was like tortured until he died.
Right. It's like pretty brutal for people to see it happen. Walk the town and a man's being crushed under rocks.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they all were like, he's a witch.
Yeah, right. So, wait, now you might be going through this, but I imagine this place definitely is a source for hauntings.
I haven't talked too much about it, but yeah, there's definitely a couple different places where they believe the town is haunted.
Yeah.
People definitely think that the graveyard is haunted, along with the church that's still there, because like that's where the minister lived and stuff.
Okay.
So Jonathan Corwin, his house is believed to be haunted. There's also Reverend Parrish's home is still there, and like it's just like it's not like a physical home so much anymore, but that's where Tituba lived, and so they believe that she is still there.
Oh, man.
And along with like there are like woods and stuff around that people believe that was where like the devil lived and that the coven practiced. So there's definitely a lot of like stuff around. But, you know, I mean, it's all up to people's interpretations. I personally think that if there is ever going to be a haunting kind of thing, people who were like unjustly executed, like that would make sense.
Yeah, right.
There is, so the people who were executed, they were not given a proper burial, and they were buried in unmarked graves somewhere in the forest.
Okay. Got it.
There is an area called Gallows Hill, which is nearby, that's supposed to be like the most haunted, but it's just like a wooded area.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, nobody, there isn't information on it, like exactly where all the trials were held and all that stuff. Like, but it was just kind of like, I think it was a lot of wherever. There were some that were taking place outside, and it was kind of like, you're a witch. And then there were some that were done more in like the courthouse kind of thing.
The witch house.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, as quickly as this all sort of started, it all kind of went away.
Interesting.
Like, because, I mean, you think about it, like, after a year and a half, they don't find anyone who can really do any witchcraft.
Sure, because you've killed them all, and anybody else is too scared to say they practice.
And I think it was also getting a lot of heat from other towns and the government in a way. Obviously, we don't have the sharing of information that we do now. But a year and a half of people being accused of being witches, and you're hearing about people being hanged, like that's going to spread.
Sure. Eventually they're like, don't go to that town either.
And the governor basically creating this court just for these witch trials, I think essentially was just like, okay, what have we found?
Sure, right.
And it was like,
right.
well, they all claim to not be witches, but we killed them.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I assume there was nothing ever proven at all.
No.
Yeah.
So and essentially like anyone who said like, no, I'm not a witch. It's like, they were just like, yeah, you are. And like, convicted.
Right.
So at a certain point, people began to realize that like, this is very unfair.
Yeah, it's not a fair trial.
No, it's
people
not.
started to realize too, like someone's going to point a finger at me.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And that was part of it too, was they started to delve into this area where it was just kind of like, oh, I want your husband. You're a witch.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Or yeah, this woman is coming on to my husband. She's a witch.
Right.
So after people began to realize how unfair all these trials were, the court refused to hear any more charges of witchcraft.
Oh, so they just like cold turkey, just done.
By 1711, all of the accused were officially pardoned.
So at this point, what is that? Only like 20 years of this stuff, ish? Do you say
Yeah.
90?
Yeah.
Yeah.
92 to 1711.
Yeah.
And then, the state of Massachusetts kind of like didn't, we don't want to talk about it. But finally, in 1957, they officially apologized for the trials.
Wait. 1957?
Uh-huh.
1957.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, it's been enough. It's been long enough. I guess we'll say
Yeah,
sorry.
I did not mess that one up.
Jeez, that's crazy.
So yeah, basically like there has been a lot of like, and even up until like the 80s, there's the satanic panic. There's the vampire panic of New England. Like there's all these kind of like mass hysteria moments. And so, people, I get that people are scared.
Right.
But there kind of comes this thing where it's like, how are you going to sit there and say that people are witches when there isn't really any real evidence?
Is there like good movies that are done about this?
Okay. So I know there are some, but there is a movie from like the 90s called The Crucible.
Okay. I feel like
It's after, I think it was a play or a book or something.
It
Yeah.
was a play, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's got like Winona Ryder and like Daniel Day-Lewis and shit.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's long, but it is a very good movie.
It's her story, right? Where she's accused. Isn't
Yes.
that what it is?
I think she's
Yeah.
like Goody Proctor or something, but
Yeah, okay.
very good. It's long. It's one you like watch in high school.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of kind of amp up some of the stuff, but it's very good. It is very well done. And it does kind of give you an idea of just the sensationalism of all of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just like, you think it's almost going to be this like mystery of like, who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? When in reality, it was just like, she's a witch. I don't
Right.
like you. So there are multiple theories on why this happened. They're the most kind of like well-known theories. There's a couple. One of them is apparently there was something called a little ice age. And it caused economic problems because it was so cold for so long. Like people weren't necessarily like, it wasn't like a real ice age where like everybody fucking died.
Sure, but it's colder than normal.
Crops were not growing.
Right.
People were not able to work. Nobody had money. And it was causing, major economic hardship. And people just blame each other.
Yeah, absolutely. You go through that anxiety and you start to look for reasons to blame.
They're all poor. They're all fucking freezing.
Right.
And so the second theory, which I think is probably the most plausible. The second theory believes that they were exposed to a kind of fungus called ergot. So this can happen. It's just like it's a crop fungus, but I think that the Ice Age situation caused the crop fungus.
Interesting.
So
they're all high?
So the ergot fungus is found in grains like rye and like, flour and stuff, and that's exactly what they were eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it can cause convulsions. So it's convulsions, hallucinations, muscle contractions, vertigo, and tingling sensations.
Interesting. So it would make you do something like what a witch would do.
Or it might just make you like, what? Something's wrong with my body.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone has cursed me.
Interesting.
Like, and, back in the day, they didn't have food like we have now. They have like bread, meat, and like butter. Like,
right.
And
right. Yes.
So if one of your like main sources of food, especially if there is some economic hardship, bread is cheap to make.
Sure.
And so they're probably eating tainted bread, whether they knew it or not. And then, you start hallucinating, like, that then you could believe you see spirits.
That theory probably is the most plausible.
Yeah.
The main one of the main complaints about the two girls who experienced symptoms first were having like muscle convulsions, and that's one of the symptoms of ergot poisoning.
Okay.
And then the third theory is just, in a sense, mass hysteria.
Sure. Yeah. It just
and-
compounds.
And honestly, I think it's like a combination of all three.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Like,
wait,
and
there's not a
especially-
theory that they're real witches?
Well, okay, obviously that's a theory, but
Especially with the coven stuff.
I personally think that like it was a combination of all of it. Like these people came over from England. That was probably a very difficult journey.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then not too long after, they're finally settling, creating a homestead, getting any type of normalcy. And then there's like a massive freeze. Like Massachusetts now gets cold. I can't imagine,
right.
hundreds of years ago, right? So it gets cold. Your crops aren't growing. Stressful. Probably a lot of people dying, possibly just due to illness.
Yes.
Right?
That was
There's
always
no,
common.
There's no
Yeah.
real fucking doctor in town.
No, you're like, what, 35 to 45 was like the max age back then? Something like that?
Yes. And
I think
then,
the doctor was a witch.
I mean, entirely possible.
Duh.
So then,
The doctor?
you know,
couldn't read or something.
hypothetically, one of the only crops that you could grow is rye or flour or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're possibly using rye to make alcohol. They're using
Yeah.
rye to make bread.
Sure.
And so they're just taking in possibly tainted food, and maybe some people are getting sick, maybe some people aren't. But then if you're a normal person who's like, I love being a Puritan, and then these
That's what they said when
People-
they woke up in the morning.
Puritan,
Yeah,
yes,
literally.
queen.
like yes, these people around you all of a sudden start acting fucking bananas.
Right, yes.
You're gonna be like, this bitch is cursed.
Yeah, you're going to be like demonic, like.
Yeah,
reasons
and then
here. Absolutely.
And so the idea of mass hysteria to me plays because it's like, if all of a sudden people are getting sick, like it's this idea of it's like it's us versus them,
Yep.
because they've already been through one hardship and now they're thinking that their town is about to be overrun by witches.
Well,
Yeah,
it also
and if I don't stop them, I'm next.
it also
Yes.
makes sense
Yeah.
that it was like younger people for the most part that were challenged because any kid, right? Especially Puritan. I don't even know if obviously the same social aspects don't apply, but like kids push the envelope, right? They do things that they shouldn't do, or younger people do things they shouldn't do. And I imagine that those things breaking their code, right, of the 6 tiers or whatever, instantly put them in like a bad light. And then they had to find a reason. No, my child would never do that. It has to be because of witchcraft or something like
and
that.
you think about it this way, like the girls who were kind of first afflicted by the witch curses were, I don't know exactly their ages, but they were children.
Right.
And so
right.
hypothetically, if it is some type of fungus, a child is going to be more susceptible than an adult.
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
And, I read somewhere that one of the youngest people accused of being a witch was 4 years old.
Wow.
And the child was not executed, but that child was in jail.
Dude, that's crazy to me.
Like, I definitely think my child is a witch at times, like a demon.
He's like floating blocks and shit.
I wouldn't send him to jail.
Yeah. That's wild.
So
that's freaking wild.
So that's the Salem Witch Trials. It's not like the most elaborate story on the planet because it's a little cut and dry, but it's kind of wild what it has kind of become, right? Mm-hmm. So, you have Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus was filmed in Salem.
Right.
And you can visit a lot of the same places. And it's very cool. And I think that that's part of the reason that Hocus Pocus has such a cool ambiance.
Sure.
Because it looks like a town where witches would have lived at some point.
Do you... go ahead, Ash.
I was going to say, if it was the governor that created the whole, like, witches court, I'm surprised that you don't hear more about this happening in other parts of Massachusetts.
Sure. Yeah, that there was like, we have witches all over the place and then making it like a thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't like spread further with the influence of like, this is the thing now.
Yeah.
From what I could understand, there were other places that did think they had witches, but the Salem Witch Trials was like the largest operation.
See, the thing is this, even though it wasn't a fair trial, they still did a trial. All the other places were like, you're a witch, and just like shot him with a musket in the face or just killed him without a trial. Because murder ran...
burned him at the stake.
Well, that's just it. Murder ran rampant back then. There was, honestly, I can't imagine criminal investigation was that good back then. You could probably have killed someone and got away with it forever. Anytime. So maybe that was just the first time they were trying to be like, let's be civilized. At least have a trial about this witch bitch.
Witch bitch.
Listen, witch bitch.
I can't even imagine the kind of trial because like you go in there and it's like, hey, so and so has accused you of being a witch. I'm not a witch. Well, she says you are.
You's a witch, okay?
Yeah, prove that you're not. Prove that you didn't do what she said she saw.
Right. Guilty till proven innocent.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's exactly what it was, right?
Yes.
Like, it's like Monty Python, like, if she floats, she's a witch. Like, it's like, no.
Very small rocks.
It's an impossible situation. It's like, are you a witch? No, that's just what a witch would say.
So
I'm curious how the people who weren't indicted, how they got off. Like, because you said there were like 200 people accused,
right?
But not all of them were found guilty of being a witch.
Yeah.
How do you get out? How do you get out from that?
I don't know. Part of me wonders.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if they were just like jailing people at that point.
It was just like, how witchy are you?
Well,
on a scale of 1 to 10.
It wasn't a very long amount of time. So if you have 200 people that are accused, I wonder if it's just taking that long to get through all their trials.
That makes sense too. Where does the lore of the witch and the pointy hat and the flying on the broom, where does all that come from? Is that literally like Wizard of Oz? Like, is that where that comes from? Or was there more before that?
I feel like it had to be before that.
Showed
Wizard
a
of
witch
Oz,
in this style.
Wizard of Oz wasn't until the 1900s.
That's true. But what I mean is like the depiction of a grotesque woman, big nose, pointy hat, flying on a broomstick. I can only imagine through mass media was the Wizard of Oz.
So apparently,
grim fairy tales, maybe.
An anthologist, Robin Skelton, suggests the association between witches and brooms may have roots in pagan fertility ritual, in which rural farmers would leap and dance on poles, pitchforks, and brooms in the light of the full moon to encourage the growth of their crops.
Interesting. Okay, and when was this? Is there a year or anything like that, or a date like this back in the...
So here's one. The pointy hat.
Yeah.
one theory is that in 1215,
Oh, geez, like medieval ages.
yes, the Fourth Council of the Lateran issued an edict that all Jews must wear identifying headgear, which was a pointed hat.
Okay.
And a lot of Jews were accused of being Satan worshippers or doing black magic.
Because they weren't following Christianity.
Yeah. So it was associated
Got it.
with.
Yeah. So very
So,
much like
We're prejudiced.
the cruise. When was the crusade? The Crusades. Crusade.
The earliest known image of witches on brooms dates back to 1451.
Okay, 1451. Interesting. So the brooms is with dancing, and the pointy hats was because you were against Christianity.
The broomstick dance from the pagan fertility ritual, became confused with accounts of witches flying through the night on their way to orgies and other illicit meetings.
Okay. What about the cauldron and the toil and the boil and the potions and stuff? Is that because that to me is like lore of like wizardry back in the day, and when I say that I mean like super ancient times, like dragons and shit.
I think the witch's cauldron probably comes from, because back in the day there were like herbalists, essentially, what
alchemists
now is
Yeah.
what we'd call it, but like
Yeah.
the female, like the people who had like the herbs and stuff that they would use to make people
Heal.
feel better, like the medicine
Yeah.
woman,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, sure.
And they all had cauldrons.
yeah.
Every home had like a cooking pot.
Right. Sure.
So,
sure.
I wonder if, maybe the women would be cooking some type of remedy in the pot, over a fire.
Right.
And it just became, because over time, I believe the local medicine woman thing became sort of intertwined with like the witch.
Yeah. What
'Cause
about
she was a-
spell book?
Are you just thinking of witch?
Lamp. I love
I was
lamp.
going to say the wart
Oh yeah, the warts.
that witches
Yeah.
have was thought to be the devil's mark. It was a blemish that was given to witches to mark them.
Interesting.
And a lot of accusations in the Salem Witch Trials were because
They had a
certain
wart?
women had blemishes on their face.
Oh my god! So you got a zit and you literally like get thrown in jail? Jeez, dude, ridiculous.
God forbid you have a mole.
Ridiculous. Moly. Well, dang, Amanda, I appreciate you. That's incredible information.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I find a lot of this stuff really fascinating. I absolutely recommend if anyone's ever in Massachusetts, not only doing Boston, because Boston's fabulous, like the Freedom Trail thing. Like, I like history, but I'm not like a crazy history person. The Freedom Trail, I would do again in a heartbeat. In fact, I want to do it again. I loved it.
That's awesome.
But the Freedom Trail thing in Salem was very cool. And it takes you by kind of the main stuff because it's not very big. Salem's kind of interesting because like downtown Salem is kind of broken into two parts where it's like you have like the Salem Witch Museum and like the graveyard and all that stuff. But it's still very like there's a little reverence, and the museum definitely has information and stuff. But there's a gift shop.
Sure.
There's photo ops.
Right.
And then
right. Yeah. They've made a tourist attraction out of it.
Yes,
on
they've
top
made
of
it into a tourist attraction, which
Right.
Hey, make your money, girl.
Yeah.
The other part of town is it's very it's not ultra like urbanized. It's still very kind of like small shops,
Sure.
local stuff. They have this like
There's no
almost like
McDonald's.
I would assume there's some type of fast food, but like I don't remember. But shoppies, that you can go to, but it's all like crystals and fortune tellers and
Which is funny because that all embraces the witchcraft stuff.
Yeah.
yet now
Whereas
yes
the whole thing was like anti-witchcraft.
Yeah.
yes I find it wild that this thing that they try to
Yeah.
the thing that keeps
All
the
the
town
witches are like,
Cross
we'll show
wires
you.
them.
it probably employs half the town.
Give us
And-
300 years.
You're not wrong.
You'll see.
You're not wrong. They'll be back.
But Yeah, there are definitely times that are better to go to Salem than others. I was there in a time where a lot of the stuff wasn't opened or had really limited hours because it wasn't like tourist season. But obviously spooky season, I'm sure. I know you can do like haunted tours and stuff where they take you through Salem. I think it's very cool, but you know, it is a little where you're like, it's a little exploitative. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of women in like Stevie Nicks kind of clothes, like smell like Nog Champa. Like there's just a lot of witchy, vibey people.
That's awesome.
But it was very cool. It's just very different than what we have over here.
Can either of you, aside from The Crucible, name any other witch movies that you would recommend?
Hocus Pocus.
Oh, that's always an easy one. What is
The
one-
Witches.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's actually called The Witches, right? Where it's like they turn into rat people or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah. What about you, Ash? You got
The
anything?
Witches, isn't that Roald Dahl?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
What is the one with the 4 girls that are all practicing witchcraft? They're all like
The Craft, I was about to say. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
The Craft. That is a
There's
good one.
also The Witch. It's like VVITCH.
Okay.
It's got Anya Taylor-Joy, I want to say. It's from 5 or 6 years ago. It's
Okay.
freaky.
Okay.
But
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
don't even get me started. I fucking love
Good,
Sabrina.
dude. Salem.
so
the
The
sarcastic
Witch,
cat.
that cat was the best.
Cat.
The Witch is a more like colonial look at a family who's dealing with their daughter being accused of being a witch.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
It is graphic,
Yeah.
but it is very good.
Well, I'll take Amanda's recommendation because she recommended Abigail and it was wonderful.
You watched it.
Yes, it was good. It was very
So
good.
good.
Not a
right?
witch movie.
I can't talk about it here on this episode though because that's vampires and we need to talk about
Whatever.
witches. All right, ladies, lead us out with your best witch impression. Amanda, you
No.
go first.
No. Don't make me do it. I'm not gonna do it.
I don't want to.
That's my witch. That's my
She's a
witch.
witch. I don't want to. I can't do a witch.
Yes, you can.
And I only set
Do
this
it.
up because I know somebody does not do
Do
a
it.
good witch. I'll get you, my pretty. Does that
That's
count?
pretty
That's
good.
not bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not too bad. Not too bad.
Get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Oh my God, Ash is like the best witch, dude.
I know.
Go back,
was
by
gonna
the way,
say-
and listen to our episodes where we did the Halloween intros, and she does such a
God.
good one.
I think they're gone.
Those are so
I think
fun.
they're gone because you have
Oh.
to take them.
Oh, sad. You know
we should
what?
put those.
I think
we should put those on the Patreon.
you know what I'll do?
Yeah.
You know what I'll actually do is if I can, I'll grab them again and I will like do like either a compilation or I'll put them at the end of the episodes or something like that. Something fun.
Look
They're
for
so-
it.
They're so
On our
stupid. I
Patreon.
love them.
Yeah. Okay. As always, we love you and good night.
That's
Yes,
not how this
and
goes.
if you want, you can check us out on our Instagram at Real Awkward Podcast, and go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Real Awkward Podcast. At $3 a month gets you exclusive episodes and some other stuff.
Oh, and guys, have a happy spooky / Halloween season.
Wow.
Sure,
Dude,
Wow.
it ain't real awkward unless we make it real awkward.
accurate.
Okay.
Good night.
Oh boy, bye bye.
Bye. Hello, Real Awkward listeners. The Real Awkward podcast turns 3 this year. That's right, 3 years of fun, entertaining content for you guys, and we cannot do it without listeners like you. If you guys want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Real Awkward Podcast for $3 a month that gets you access to exclusive shows, merchandise, and name shoutouts on the show. We also will take your suggestions for show topics. Thank you so much for 3 years, and we look forward to many more.